episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde. I am joined alongside my co-host and good friend London Beth. And today we are coming back with Chicago Bears training camp day 19, August 24th, 2021. Crazy day because of the news that broke this morning. Justin Fields will start the next preseason, not regular season, preseason game this Saturday against the Tennessee Titans. The injury bug has now unfortunately moved to the tight end room, it seems like, but the injury bug leaving the offensive line, I guess, is a positive because the offensive line continues to improve and looked really good at practice today, especially Jason Peters, the veteran that we just signed from the Philadelphia Eagles from free agency. For a guy that's 39 years old, he's not doing too bad so far. So we think the Bears have their final cornerback spot locked in. We'll get more into that, but before we dive into it, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Stupid Car Tray. Tired of your pizza toppings sliding, office coffee distracting you while driving, grease and other stains getting on your seat, or you're just enjoying a game on the couch and don't want to lean over? Look no further than the Stupid Car Tray. Proudly USA made, Stupid Car Tray makes your passenger seat or couch a level surface for all transportation and couch potato needs. With accessories like the Stupid Seat Anchor, hand sanitizer bottle, or 100% silicone grip mat, your tray is the ultimate car organizer. With over 20 different color combinations, there's a Stupid Car Tray for everyone. Visit www.stupidcartray.com and use discount code J16 to get 16% off your entire order. Link in the description.
I got a Stupid Car Tray, Nick, and honestly, again, I use it every single day. Make sure to head over to their website in the description and use code JAY16 at checkout. So let's get into it. We're starting Justin Fields.
Justin Fields preseason. I want to emphasize preseason. Everyone was
so happy about that.
Preseason. It's not regular season. Andy Dalton will start week 1 for the Chicago Bears. That is also confirmed, but a big quote from Matt Nagy in regards to that. Also, happy birthday to Allen Robinson, Bears #1 wide receiver. Make sure to go over to the Bears Instagram or Twitter today and tag him and say happy birthday. So the offense, obviously, Justin Fields will start this Saturday's preseason game against the Tennessee Titans. Bears head coach Matt Nagy confirmed that this morning that he will play the first half of the game, and he will have ones out there. Not as many. Don't expect to see Allen Robinson. Don't expect to see Jimmy Graham maybe if Cole Kmet's still hurt, expect to see Jimmy Graham, but don't expect to see Darnell Mooney. Don't expect to see Marquise Goodwin. It could be an interesting situation for Justin Fields, but he will have that starting offensive line because they think that that's what's going to help Fields really show what he can do instead of having the third stringers out there protecting him. But great chance of the rookie to go up against another tough defense. If Tennessee plays their ones, that has not been confirmed yet. We will find out later in the week, so stay tuned for our later in the week episodes. But he will be working with the best offensive line talent on the offense and some of the starters for the first at least couple series. So, he might not have everyone, but that's a big deal for Justin Fields. Builds his confidence, builds him as a player, and also we're able to see what he can really do with the best talent on the field. Andy Dalton will not play at all in this game. It'll just be Justin Fields and Nick Foles. That was confirmed by Matt Nagy and via Brad Briggs' Twitter. Matt Nagy did throw in there, and this is what I was getting at earlier, that Dalton's playing time and staying starter on this team will be determined by performance in wins. So Andy Dalton doesn't do too hot in the first 4 weeks. Bears fans could be like, hey, that Lions game starting to look really good for Justin Fields to come in. So stay tuned for that. Big take by Matt Nagy. So London, Matt Nagy guy, obviously. Benefits of this move being announced this early by Matt Nagy, early in the week, not later in the week, gives time for Tennessee to plan. Also to say exactly like if they're going to play their starters or not. Will Tennessee play their starters on defense, or are they probably going to sit everybody, considering that Tennessee is definitely going for it all this year with the roster that they have?
Yeah, I'm going to first hit on Tennessee and their defense. Last year, their defense was not the greatest. They had a huge injury bug that plagued a lot of their secondary players and honestly a lot of their D linemen. I don't expect them to play a lot of starters. I just don't. I think that, with the acquisition of a guy like Julio Jones and all the other different kinds of players that they brought around, especially, with a returning guy like Derrick Henry, that offense is poised to be a very, very dynamic and dominant offense. Their defense was definitely their downfall, and I think a lot of it had to do with injury. So I don't expect a lot of their starters to play. Maybe guys who are, fringe starters might, touch the field here and there. But overall, absolutely love this move by Matt Nagy. He's been getting a ton of like flack. He's been getting a ton of just harsh comments and all this kind of stuff throughout Twitter on the comments. I've been getting ripped apart because I still absolutely back up Matt Nagy as our head coach. And overall, this is exactly what we expect, and this is exactly what should happen. Justin Fields starting our last preseason game and getting a ton of reps, with, guys at the likes of Jason Peters, I'm sure is going to see the field. James Daniels is back. And this offensive line, I'm very, very, very excited about. And I expect him to flash. And, if he has a really good preseason game, it's going to continue to push for that starting position. But yes, I still think it's going to be a couple weeks out until he's actually a starter in the regular season. But I'm really excited to see him walk out there after the kickoff, just to get that whole ambiance feeling and all that kind of stuff. So great stuff. And also one little thing, love Matt Nagy's comment about Andy Dalton. You perform and you win and you stay on the field. And honestly, I expect, I don't know about the wins because we do have a very tough schedule, but I expect Andy Dalton to perform well enough to stay on the field, to give Justin Fields a little bit more time to develop. And like you said, going into week 4 through 8 is kind of looking like that time.
So just to clarify the comment that you just made, like just well enough to stay on the field. Like obviously the Bears want to win. They have a good team. Matt Nagy his job is he's on a hot seat. I don't care what people say. Ryan Pace is not on a hot seat, especially with how things have been going. But Matt Nagy is on a hot seat right now. So Andy Dalton's going to do as the absolute best he can, whether he is on the field or not on the field. He is not going to just be like, 250 yards seems fine for today. Like, no, he's going to go ball out try to go for 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks, 1,000 rushing. I'm just kidding. No, Andy Dalton's not nearly as much of a rusher as Justin Fields, but I like what you said. It is a glimpse into the future. That moment that Justin Fields actually is a legitimate NFL season starter walking out for the Chicago Bears, is the starter. It's going to be a special moment. Give you that little bit of preview. We already know that all the hype guys are going to be taking video of that and making some super cool clip about that going on. So hats off to Justin Fields. We hope for him for the best, and Andy Dalton as well. Andy Dalton wants to win. That's for sure. He knows his role for the Chicago Bears, and he knows that the Bears have a good enough team right now in order to make that run for the NFC North. I think we do, even with Aaron Rodgers back in the division. We can definitely beat the Lions. We can definitely beat the Vikings. And,
100%.
We'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. I mean, there's still definitely some tough love there, like the last dance. But we'll get into our NFC North preview in a couple weeks, folks. We're here for training camp today and focusing on the now. So we will be back. Wait for week 1. We're going to have a lot of exciting special guests coming on, just a little Easter egg right there. So stay tuned for that. Another update from today's offense, quarterback-wise, is that Andy Dalton and Justin Fields struggled against both the 1s and the 2s today. Andy Dalton was picked off by Eddie Jackson. Justin Fields was picked off by Travis Gibson. There were a few more picks. They didn't really get into that, but they were taken pretty seriously because obviously you want Justin Fields to do the best he can, and Andy Dalton as well. So going into what we hit on earlier, the tight end room is a little bit with the injury bug right now. So unfortunately, it's going around. Cole Kmet is still dealing with that hamstring injury. So now that's starting to raise a little bit of concern. Luckily, it's not a tear. It's a tweak. Hamstring injuries can stay around for a while. London, I know you've dealt with them. I've dealt with them. I'm sure our viewers have dealt with them. So I'd rather have Cole Kmet sit. He for sure has the skills in order to play in the NFL now, especially after last season and what we've seen so far this year. But I just sit it out, get healed up, big man. We need you in week 1. Against the Rams over the Tennessee Titans. Jimmy Graham had a veteran day off. And then Jesper Holstead, JB Holtz, and Scooter Harrington are all injured as well. Light tweaks, nothing serious. Difference between, being out for a while and just a tweak. So they're all fine. But Jesse James was a very busy man today. So London, are you ordering Jesse James jersey? Like, is it locked? Is he TE3? Or, is there anything else he has to prove as a player?
I mean, I think he's going to get a lot of playing time with Justin Fields, especially this coming up preseason game against the Titans. They've made a really, really great connection together through training camp and then also now into the preseason games. Listen, Jesse James was another absolute dime of a steal for King Pace in the preseason, in the off season. I am super happy that we did it. He is still playing to a high enough level. And honestly, like I said, Cole Kmet's having some little tweaks and, Jimmy Graham is not a young chicken anymore, okay? And bringing Jesse James in there as that third tight end who is still dynamic. And honestly, if both these guys, even week one, were a little bit still banged up, I trust Jesse James that he would go out there and perform as even a tight end one on this team because of his connection with Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. So hats off to King Pace. Jesse James, great job coming in and kicking some butt.
So with Jimmy Graham leaving next year potentially or retiring, I mean, this could be the last year in his NFL, last year on the contract with the Chicago Bears. Could you see the Bears signing Jesse James to an extension midway through the season in order to keep him, depending on what Jimmy Graham communicates with the Chicago Bears?
Unfortunately, not. He's too old. I don't.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I think he's a really good first year. I think he's a really good 1-year player. But I don't expect them to just sign him again. Unless something crazy happens, like he has over 1,000 yards or something just absolutely miraculous like that. But I don't expect that out of him. I don't think he's ever been that kind of player. But he's been a very solid and consistent player. Also, you can always find a really good tight end out of the draft.
Right.
I mean, there's always just super athletic kids that are playing tight end, and they're just getting faster and faster, like Kyle Pitts.
Exactly. So let's talk about the Bears' offensive line. They had a strong practice today, according to reports. So that's something that you pretty much never hear. Jason Peters and Germain Ifedi are playing faster or more involved in physical drills. They are almost playing at 100%, according to Matt Nagy. Yesterday, they kind of took it 50-50, but they were in pads yesterday, so they were getting used to that feel. But first training camp with the whole starting offensive line going nearly full speed. That is a very crazy thing to say, considering this is the 19th day of training camp. Ifedi was at OTAs, which is good. He looks good. Ifedi looks good. And they did that press conference with him. He looks leaner. He looks, his arms look a little bit bigger. Like I like what I see out of Ifedi. I hope he has a good year. A lot of pressure on him. Coaches are saying that they expect him to potentially make the Pro Bowl this year. So that's a big take. So not even a Tony's take. That's a Bears coach take. So more to come on that. Also, a fun little thing to hear is that there is no for sure starting left tackle confirmed on this roster. They have Jason Peters in there right now, but Larry Borom still has a shot. I know London and I keep saying, if the door is open, young man, take it. He's probably got the third all the way to the fourth, or the second all the way to the fourth quarter this upcoming Saturday against the Tennessee Titans. So stay tuned for that. We're expecting to see them play a lot this Saturday. That is also confirmed via Adam Hodge. Bears, they need to get this gel going. They need to get this unit to know each other, who's good, who's not. And then Bears also waived outside offensive lineman Barbera Shrubmore. So, on his way. London, I know you're smirking because I totally tried to botch that, but he was waived, could come back to the roster. So more to come on that. Even if Field doesn't get number one wide receivers, London, how important is it and how likely is it that this offensive line will improve his level of play?
Look what happened last year, Nick. Okay, we had a really shuffled offensive line. They were all over the place. We had no idea who was starting at each position other than, I guess, Cody Whitehair, but he was still at center at the time, I think. So he even had, was all over the place. Once we solidified our offensive line, this team started to click. David Montgomery started to absolutely go off, and everything just started to kind of fall in place. We made a push for the playoffs. That's exactly what I expect if this offensive line gets it together. Like you alluded to, it is week 19. Okay, we are 19 weeks into this, and we're about to be on our last preseason game. And then, 19 days into this, I apologize. And then we are about to be on our last preseason game, and then our first regular season game is in a little over a week. That is absolutely scary that our offensive line is still not solidified. If they do get solidified, if Jason Peters comes in and is the veteran leader that we have, that will greatly affect Justin Fields. But I'm telling you, his performance, even in this preseason game, and Andy Dalton in week one, I'm just saying I'm going to be watching this offensive line like a hawk this coming up week. They're just like an absolute hawk. I want to see what they do. If Larry Borom performs again, how they're kind of looking. Does James Daniels look good? Germain Ifedi, all that kind of different stuff like that. Because we're 19 days into this and we still don't have a solidified, right to left, who our offensive line is.
Yeah, but we got you're looking at what's real, the reality of things. The positive is that we have a better starting offensive line than we
absolutely
did.
And if they can gel, they're gonna kick some butt.
I hope so. I hope so. We'll see though. That's a big we'll see. Last thing, no one's really talking about David Montgomery. David Montgomery was mentioned in a tweet today that he went up to the quarterbacks and like did the throwing bucket drill. But have you heard anything, London? He's not hurt according to the reports that I've seen, but I think, are they just being cautious with him ever since he's had that slight tweak against the Dolphins, or what's going on with David Montgomery?
Yeah, Nick, all the reports that I hear about Monty is that they are being cautious with him in this training camp. Cohen is still really, really behind on his rehab. He was supposed to be back, I think, like weeks ago. He was supposed to have returned. Damian Williams has been doing good, but had a fumble, wasn't playing the greatest. And Khalil Herbert's been flashing, really, really positive plays, but he's still a rookie. So David Montgomery is going to be the anchor of this running back room come week 1, and we absolutely need him to be extremely good, starting off the season. So I think, from all reports that I see, they're being patient with him. They're not letting him really touch the ball. I don't expect David Montgomery to play a single snap this preseason game. Not a single one. So
he shouldn't. He shouldn't. Yeah,
No.
like he's too important to this team. He has too much to prove. And we need that number one running back, especially behind a guy like Andy Dalton, because Andy Dalton can't move that well. So if he's in trouble, he's got an outlet to throw to in regards to David. Not saying Damian Williams can't do it, not saying Herbert can't do it, but David Montgomery obviously is the best bet for that. Let's move to the defense real fast. Not too much news from the defense today. But it was a big day for the secondary. They were hitting the turnover bucket left and right today in regards to all quarterbacks. The biggest ones was Tayshaun. Oh, man, I don't know why someone spelled that wrong. Tayshaun Gibson Sr. Took the ball away from Justin Fields. Eddie Jackson took the ball away from Andy Dalton. And then Artie Burns was running with the ones again all week alongside Jalen Johnson. So it doesn't sound like Kendall Vildor is going to get that number one spot anymore, unfortunately. Great depth guy, though. No doubt about it. But those struggles that he had against the Bills and slightly against the Dolphins might be catching up to him. And then finally, London, your guy, Thomas Graham Jr., got a lot of playing time today. Actually ran a few situations with the ones. So they might be just getting used to that rotation of players that they've been doing. And he's put himself in the position to be cornerback 2. That first guy rotated in alongside Kendall Vildor. So good to see there. London, any thoughts on the defense before we close out?
Nah, Coach Desai lit an absolute fire under their butts and said, listen, I don't care how old you are. I don't care who you are. You better start performing, because that Bills game was an absolute embarrassment. Love to hear that they're dominating.
Yep.
The turnover bucket, baby.
I like the turnover bucket. The turnover chain's getting used by too many teams. It's a bucket.
The U was the first.
Yeah, the U was the first to use it, but now I like the turnover bucket. I think that's more Bears related. So nothing new from injury updates. We'll keep you guys updated if we hear anything else tomorrow, and make sure that you look at our Twitters, as we will be updating there as well. But with that, thank you very much for joining day 19 of Chicago Bears training camp. My name is Nick Brody. I'm joined alongside my co-host London Beth, and we will see you guys next time.